All right, Paul. Well, yesterday you and I attended the Oshawa Generals game, which I had my notepad in hand, of course, given my public address announcing interests. And I do want to say I have a headache this morning because I consumed not one, but two salty hot dogs.
Yeah, I was just going to say I thought you were going to say you consumed a couple of beers, which you did, which is to be expected. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, there were some really suspect salty hot dogs that you're devouring. And
Wait, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, what makes that what's suspect about it?
Because they're on a roller, like any hot dog you buy from a snack bar is going to be suspect because it's on one of those roller things.
It's not on a roller,
yeah,
is it?
Of course
I
it is.
didn't
Where
notice
else
a
would
roller.
it come from?
What was in a foil?
They don't have a
foil
barbecue
wrapped
in the back. There's no barbecue. Of course, it's on a roller, one of those glistening under the heat lamp.
I think they have a grill, and I do agree. I think it was glistening under a heat lamp, but I think it was cooked in the back on like a fry, like one of those flat grill things, whatever you call it. Not barbecue, but like a hot thingy.
Okay, well, we'll have to research that. Next time we go see a game, we'll kind of peer in the back in the kitchen there and see if there's an actual grill arrangement of some kind. But either way, yeah, it's one of those...
Go behind the scenes of the Oshawa General's food machine, whatever it is.
Yeah, but either way, it's one of those food items you buy from a snack bar that you know you're going to have shocking indigestion at 3 a.m. Did you?
I'm proud, happy, not proud.
Proud, yeah, proud.
Happy to say, I did not wake up middle of the night with throwing up into the toilet or anything like that.
Back to Gaviscon or something, yeah.
But I did have a dull ache in my head, so I'm pretty sure it was the hot dog.
So it gave you a bit of a headache then. Yeah, it's to be understood. But yeah, you're right. Not something to be proud of, the fact that you can consume horrible snack foods and not feel the repercussions throughout the evening.
Mm-hmm. I want to share something else this morning that's going on. There's something going on in our house, actually, I want to just quickly share with you. So we're having a lot of trouble with the temperature in the house. And about 2 weeks ago, we called our furnace guy and wanted to get it checked out. Of course, they said, there'll be a $150 diagnostic charge for that. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? I mean, we called the company that installed the furnace years ago, so we've used these guys a few times. The problem is it just doesn't seem to want to... They came out, checked it out, fine. But what the problem is that it's just staying at like 18 degrees Celsius, and it'll go up later in the day, but I don't know what's going on. I've looked at the schedule. It's one of these Ecobee thermostats, like, the smart thermostats. Something isn't right, and I'm kind of getting frustrated.
How old is the furnace, though? Like, is this something that is on its way out? Do you need to get it?
No. It'd be like maybe 7 years old.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure what to
high
tell you there,
efficiency
buddy.
furnace, and yeah, it just came down this morning. It's at 18, and I've got the settings that it's supposed to go to 18 through the night, but it should be up to 20 during the day. So I don't know what's going on.
Okay,
but it's frustrating. And I don't want to call these people back and get them to charge me another $150. So what, do I call another company maybe, or?
Yeah, I think I would. For me, I actually have my furnace through like a protection plan through Enercare, which is one of the, for those of you not in the Toronto area, Enercare is sort of like a natural gas provider. And there's like a protection plan you can buy. Where,
what does that mean?
So what it means is that, you pay like a monthly amount, and it acts as like a warranty. So this monthly, well, I think for like an annual cost, you're probably paying maybe $300, but it's actually a good deal because that includes an annual servicing, which would have cost about $150 anyway.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
And if anything goes wrong with the furnace, like if it requires any replacement parts, it's covered under this warranty. So especially when it comes to a furnace, it's one of those things you don't want it to crap out on, Christmas Eve or something like that when it's hard to get people out, or, during the coldest stretch of the year and you're having to deal with an unheated house. It's nice to have that peace of mind. So I'd look into that.
All right. Well, I'm going to figure out something here.
Well,
Other stuff going on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so when I come over to your house and wonder why it's so cold in there, I won't accuse you of being a cheapskate because you don't want to pay your heating bill.
Yeah, like a Scrooge from Charles Dickens.
Yeah. I wear my muffler around my neck.
Okay, so we have a few topics. We want to talk a little bit about playing sports in our advanced age, which for us is...
Bite your tongue. We're not advanced.
Well, some might think we are.
Yeah.
Probably our kids think we are.
Yeah.
Playing sports in our 40s plus now at this point. And we want to talk a little bit about a topic we have discussed before, which is inheritances. And there's a couple things I want to share about that, and I think you have some thoughts as well. And those are the two main ones. We might get to some other stuff, and then we'll finish up with what we're watching, listening to. Neither of us could find any weird news, so there's too much news going on anyway with this Ukraine situation. I think it's just, let's stay away from the news, whether it's weird or not.
Yeah, we're kind of newsed out, if there is such an expression. Yeah, I try to avoid the news. I've been trying to do that for the last 2 years with all of the doom and gloom over COVID. And now that's finally starting to turn a positive note, and we're bombarded with the Ukrainian situation. So not to make light of that, but it's just sometimes you just want good news. You just want, positive stuff in your life. And why click on the news and walk away depressed? Isn't that a good thing that we didn't find any weird news? Like, yeah, there's weird news stories out there, but there wasn't anything that really caught my attention as being really bizarre. So that's a good thing, right? People are being responsible and not doing any weird crap out there.
Well, or it hasn't hit the news yet.
Maybe they're these weird acts are in process right now. We'll have to revisit that next week.
One other thing before we get into our topics. Last week, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we went to the Windsor Spitfires game and recorded an episode. Mind you, it was after we had attended the game, had imbibed a bit. Several beverages were consumed, and we decided, what a great idea, pull out the microphone and recording equipment and record an episode. And we listened to it on the way back. Windsor is, 4 hours-ish from
about
Toronto
4 hours,
to Toronto. So we listened to the episode, and I think throughout we could tell perhaps that the influence of beverages were playing into the episode and impacting it.
You more so than me. I think I could definitely sense that you had a few in you. I think
we could let...
Yeah. We could let the listeners decide. We could, vote for whoever I think is the most inebriated. I'm sure you'll win.
But the debate we were having, sort of a debate, was whether or not we actually air this episode. Do we actually publish it as an episode? And whether or not maybe some people might be turned off perhaps by the fact that we had done this episode in that sort of condition.
I vote yes. I think we should, because it's weird. Although, yeah, we had a few in us, but I thought it was still a great conversation. I think we had some really interesting topics in there, and for a couple of guys that were, nearing the end of a Saturday night with a few drinks in us, I think we were quite philosophical, shall we say.
And we listened to it when we were not under the influence. So on the car ride home, yes, everybody, we did not drive home under the influence. The next day we went back to Toronto and listened to it. And so we are listening to it with sober ears, you would say. Yeah,
actually, it was better than I thought it was going to be. So I say we do. It might need a lot of editing, but
we'll have to see.
Yeah. It'll explain, first of all, why we were in Windsor. And as you can probably deduce from now, we like to watch OHL hockey games. We talk about all sorts of stuff like that. It'll be if nothing else, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah, I think you only live once, and perhaps it's not a bad idea to put yourself into the public forum in both inebriated and non-inebriated states, just for archival purposes, if nothing else.
Is this to show that you're human? That you
Yes.
you are a real man, and that you are capable of bleeding and have any feelings.
We're not perfect people.
Yeah,
Listeners, no, we're not perfect.
You know, I know our listeners, put us on a pedestal and think of us as, the podcast gods, but hey.
We're not pure.
Yeah, we're not
completely.
pure. We have our faults.
Okay, Paul, softball season is coming up, and what we've played together on the same softball team, and you call it softball. It's slow pitch.
Yeah, slow pitch.
It's not baseball, but let's say it's slow pitch, which for the listeners, it's the pitches are thrown underhand at a minimum of 6 feet, maximum of 12 feet arc. So it is, kind of lobbed in there for you. So it's meant for people who aren't looking for super, super competitive, at least from a pitching standpoint. But the sport can get competitive. We, however, play in a fairly, it's competitive, but it's not, major league slow pitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Slow pitch season is fast approaching. I have been playing, well, you probably longer than I have, but in terms of our slow pitch season, it's got to be coming up well over 25 years since I've been on a team. You've played on and off for, pretty much all your life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is a fun time of season. Looking forward to it, having some practices throughout the month of April. Season starts in May. And yeah, I really enjoy it. I've always said to myself, the moment it stops being fun, then that's when I'll hang it up, I guess. But I'm still having fun. Maybe not the player I was a couple of years ago, but I like to still think I can be competitive or contribute to the team effort. But for me personally, I really enjoy the team camaraderie, the friendships, hanging out with the guys. Having some post-game beers after the game in the parking lot is kind of the best part in some ways. So yeah, what are your thoughts on our upcoming season?
Yeah, I've toyed with perhaps hanging it up over the last few years. I do love playing, but I have thought I'm not the player I used to be, and especially in the field. Like I think I can still hit pretty well, but fielding wise, my arm is just crap. I know last year you had me play second base and shortstop, I think a couple for 1 or 2 games because we just had some issues finding players, and that was horrible. And I'm like, what am I going to do here? Like, I felt like I should go hire somebody to fix my problems with throwing, because I feel like I just start, like, when I can't operate under pressure, if I get a ball hit to me and I get it and I throw it, I panic, like I can't throw the ball. So that's why I play first mostly, just I don't have to throw much, but I don't like that. That bothers me. I want to be better than I am. And yeah, I love playing though. I do like playing for sure. And I love hitting.
Yeah, you raise a good point about, I guess we think we are capable of doing more in our minds.
No, but I was like, I was not capable. I was not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like that was horrible. Like,
yeah, but
I threw balls to first that were like 20 feet away from the target. Like,
yeah, but
and that's,
but then
I don't
again,
like that.
You hadn't played in a couple of years because of being away in Japan. So
Yes.
yeah, I think you're being a little hard on yourself. And it's one of those things where if you're showing up to play once a week, you can't expect to be a superstar. And we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do well, and we want to do our part to help the team win, which is understandable. But as you said, we're in our 40s. We're not the players we were back in our 20s. The fact that we're there more for the beer and the salty hot dogs and stuff like that. It's we're there for the camaraderie, and just I enjoy the social aspect of it because, we have a really great team in terms of just really good guys. Everyone gets along well. There's no drama, at least pretty minimal. But yeah, I enjoy everyone's company, and that's why I love showing up on Sundays, if nothing else, just to hang out with the guys and just to kind of make that your guy time. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't do enough of. In terms of being part of an organized group or sport, It doesn't have to be sports per se. It can be like some kind of a social club. But I think a lot of men our age and older don't do that. And, you raised an interesting point about, when we look at our own fathers. I know my dad never played softball. He never really, was part of a social group of some kind. And that was
no, and nor was mine.
Yeah, and you've commented that your dad was the same as well, where he didn't play sports. But I think it's important.
Not after he had basically got married and had a family.
Yeah,
yeah. Sports he played as a kid, and I think he played a lot of sports, but it didn't. And this is also generational, I think, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how many other people's parents played sports on an organized team in that generation. My dad's 80, he'll be 81 this year. So that would be, say, my age now. I'm 49 and I've been playing since I was, since I was early 20s. For him, that would have been like playing in the 70s, like the early 70s, through to like, the into the 90s or late 80s. Mm-hmm. And that generation, I don't know that generation would have really done that.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, we've been in we play in the Pickering Men's Slow Pitch League. And, that league has been around for a very, very long time. I think it was established back in the 1970s. So, there's always been an interest in slow pitch throughout all parts of Ontario and in Canada.
I didn't realize the league was that old.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been around for quite a while. And if anything, I think there was more teams playing in the league back in like the 80s, the 90s.
It was one of the biggest leagues. I know that.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest leagues at one point. One of the biggest leagues in Ontario. And if anything, I think the membership, or I guess the amount of teams, has probably decreased over the years. I think probably within the last, maybe 10 or 12 years, there's probably been a net decrease of probably about 10 teams within the league. So I'd be interested to kind of do like a research study as to, did people play sports more in other generation, in our parents' generation, more so than our generation, or is our generation being distracted by other things? Maybe, I don't know.
There's more to do.
Maybe more to do. Hard to say.
There's more going on, I guess. Like if you look, for an example, at it's sort of off topic a bit, but sports, like watching sports on TV, a lot of kids today, I don't know how many kids like say even 14-year-olds are sitting down and watching Blue Jays games and Leaf games, like turning it on and saying, I want to watch the game right now, and then watching it for a couple hours. I don't know that that's happening that much.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, because even for my own son, he likes sports and he will watch bits and pieces of it, but he won't sit down and watch an entire game from start to finish. It doesn't interest him. And I'm sure a lot of kids.
Why is that, do you think?
I think
too much other stuff.
Just too much distraction, too much, mental stimulation from video games and Snapchat and God knows what else.
That scares me. That's I get really worried about that.
Yeah.
That this whole attention span thing, and that you're right. Maybe they can't sit down and watch a baseball game for 7 or 8 innings, or even 3 innings, because there isn't that dopamine hit that they're getting from a 15-second TikTok video.
Yeah, well, I think I know in the case of my son, he likes to watch it live. Like, he likes to go down to Jay's games, and he likes to go to the Oshawa Generals games. And for the most part, I think he's pretty engaged in the game. But I think with a lot of people these days, the attention span of watching stuff on TV, it's not there. I think they'd rather be doing something else than watching a game on TV. But anyway, yeah.
Did you watch games on TV as a kid?
Yeah, I think I did. Just trying to think back that far, but I'm pretty sure I did.
I was, a huge baseball fan, and I have to admit that I know I watched games as a kid, but I don't think that I necessarily watched full games, or, I would set up to watch a game with all the intent to watch the whole game, but I might only watch like 3 or 4 innings.
Well, I should circle back by saying that, yes, when I was a kid, and this is probably in my teenage years, I was watching games because that was sort of like the glory days of the Jays, the 92, 93 World Series winning teams. I think even the Leafs were doing really well back then. So, yeah.
What age was this? How old were you?
15, I guess, 16.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're watching a winning team, that makes things a little bit more interesting to watch versus watching a losing team. But anyway, I just sort of circling back to our original point about the slow pitch season is that, I think it's important that, as we are in our 40s, it's important that we carry on, because I think once we sort of quote unquote hang him up, it's hard to go back. I should note that there's one of the guys on our team, he's 70 years old this year.
Yeah.
And he's still a great player. He's one of our most consistent players.
Good Lord. Sorry, my little beeper went off here.
A little timer
1,000% volume.
But as I was saying, one of our guys on our team, he's 70, and he's an awesome guy, great player. And, he's the kind of guy I want to strive to be, being active at the age of 70, where you're still socializing, you're still hanging out with the guys, you're still participating in an organized team sport. So I think it's important for us to continue on that. And if we're having fun, don't overthink it. Just go out there every Sunday and have fun with the guys and just treat it as your own time. And I think it's important for our kids to see that we play sports as well. Because, I think it sets an example for them. We can be, as fathers, as role models to our kids. If they see that we're active well into, 40 and beyond, then that's a good thing.
It makes me wonder, like, what would it have been like to watch my dad play sports? Like, bring me to the ballpark at, 9, 10 years old and watch him play. Like, I don't have any memory of that because it didn't happen, but that would be kind of cool in a way, because you get to see your father in a different way than, when he leaves for work in a suit every day and comes home, and then he's in the house and, weekends doing stuff. But to actually go watch him do an activity like that with friends, that would have been really cool, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is important to have your kids see that you have a large social circle, and to see them sort of, let loose a little bit, have some fun, just joke around with the guys on the team, with the post-game celebration or post-game beers, whatever it might be. I think it's important. And, as I said before, my view is that I will have full intentions of playing until it stops being fun. And so far, I'm still having fun.
This episode is brought to you by Pace Painting. Pace Painting, serving all your painting needs, whether commercial or residential. Reach Pace Painting at paintwithpace@gmail.com or via their Facebook page, Pace Painting Inc. Or call Peter at 289-356-7744. Paint with Pace. Okay, we're going to talk about inheritances, and this is a topic that we did discuss quite a few episodes ago. I think mostly focused on, I think the theme we had was expectations.
That's right.
Of an inheritance.
Yeah.
And should we expect, or should someone expect, an inheritance?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what we're looking at here is about inheritances, and let's say if there's multiple siblings, should the siblings, or should the parent, let's start with the parents. As a parent, if you have multiple siblings, how do you put your will together when it comes to multiple siblings, or multiple offspring in the case of parents? Do you just divide it evenly, 50-50 if there's 2, or, in thirds if it's 3? And you have one child, so yours is a no-brainer, I guess. You're just, if you're going to leave money to your kid, it's going to be all going to, well, maybe it won't be, but you could of course, not just leave all your money to your kids. It could be some to a charity or to some other family, perhaps. So what we wanted to talk about today was more specifically around you have a brother, I have a sister. Is it the right thing to do for parents to leave an even split, whatever it is they leave, whether they leave all of it or part of it? Should the siblings receive an equal share, assuming there's an inheritance coming?
I don't think so. I think it's whoever is drawing up the will. It's
Whoever loves the parents the most.
Yeah. Whoever is the best child should get the most. Yeah.
Right.
No, but what I mean is that, okay, if you're creating a will, you should have all the freedom in the world to determine, what percentage you want to give to each child. I think there's, again, these expectations that there should be like a 50-50 split if there's two, or like every child gets an even share.
So you're saying, right, that you would not expect to receive the same amount as your sibling. That's not, like, your parents have the right to decide that. I'm not saying right is the wrong word, but is it fair for them to allocate a certain amount, a higher amount to one versus the other? So your brother, in your case.
Yeah, I think if they're of sound mind, if that is their decision to give more money to a certain individual, you may not like that decision, but that is their decision. You have to respect that.
So why would a parent do that?
Well, with lots of reasons. If there is a parent, okay, so for example, if you have a child that has maybe disowned their parent or has been, very absent, or, a very non-active participant, we see that a lot where, one sibling does a lot more for the other. One
sibling does more for the parents.
Yeah, sorry. Like one sibling does much more for the parent than the other. I know that. Well, I'm not going to mention families, but I know that I know of a few different scenarios. I guess, two children, and one of the children has, taken the side of. Well, in this case, it was because of a divorce. And unfortunately, siblings took sides, and which is unfortunately very common. And there's many situations where, one of the children takes the side of one parent, and this is, the child takes the side of the other parent. And many times a child decides to kind of disassociate themselves from a particular parent. And in those instances where you have, let's say, two children, and one of your children wants to have nothing to do with you, then why should they be entitled to your money? Give it to the child who has been there for you in, sickness and health, and invites you over for dinner every week, that type of thing. That, those are the children that, should be, I wouldn't say rewarded, but, there's an acknowledgement for individuals or for children that play an active role in their parents' lives, that genuinely care for them and provide assistance to them. So why shouldn't they receive a little bit more if they went sort of, I wouldn't say above and beyond the call of duty, because obviously you do that anyway for your parents, but some people do more than others. And if you make that decision to provide more to one over the other, then you should have that right. Like it shouldn't be that expectation.
Okay. So what about all things being equal in terms of that? Like you're saying, sometimes there's an estranged kid, and there's a divorce, and that one parent is sided with versus another, and there's probably a separate inheritance potentially coming from each parent. What about in a scenario where there isn't a divorce, and all things being equal, both kids are, good kids, and their parents want to leave the money behind. They've decided they're going to leave their money behind to the kids. Is it right or should they still divvy it up in a different way?
Well, again, I guess that's an individual decision based on, your view as that parent. I think if you have a good relationship, let's say for argument's sake, you have two kids and you have an excellent relationship with both your children, then yeah, I think it's fair that each child gets their own, gets a fairly equal allotment of money.
And is it unfair if they don't?
I don't know. That's a great question. It might be. I think that's an example where it could cause a little bit of resentment.
And that's the key part.
Yeah.
Is the what are you doing? What effect as parents are you having on your legacy if you are to leave behind a different proportion of your what you're leaving behind? What effect is that having on your children after you're gone?
Yeah. No, you're right. That could be very divisive if you make that decision to say, okay, so-and-so is getting 75%, the other person's getting 25%, but you had an excellent relationship with both your kids. What I'm saying is that, if you had a very estranged relationship with a child, or you just, there was a lot of friction, or that child just did not wish to play a large role in your life, then yeah, I think you are within your means to say, no, I don't think that person should receive a full allotment. That, the child that did more for me, that wants to be in my life, should be rewarded.
I'm reading a book right now. This is partially where I'm coming up with this topic. It's I think it's The Millionaire Next Door, which is a pretty famous book. A lot of people know it. Sort of like there's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's The Millionaire Next Door. And I believe it's in Millionaire Next Door that they say that doctors are among the most financially in bad shape that out of all professionals. And the reason for that is quite often it's assumed by people that doctors are making lots of money and are just naturally going to be financially successful because of it. That one thing that they've found in studies is that in families where there's a doctor is one of the kids, so 3 kids, one's a doctor, the other's a plumber and a I'll say just like a corporate worker, an office worker, that the doctors tend to get less inheritances from their parents because it's assumed that they don't need the money.
Yeah, that's a good point where, yeah, you can run into some issues where some people may view, why is that individual getting, their full allotment of inheritance? Because yeah, they're a doctor. They don't need the money. They're rich in their own means.
Mm-hmm. So, which is not always true. Yeah. Because there's a lot of other areas where doctors are expected to be more charitable than other people. They're expected to drive more expensive cars. They're expected to look more successful. So this was an interesting thing that I found out about doctors, and I'm sure it's other professions as well. But I guess that comes down to the other question, which is if you have offspring who, let's say there's 4 kids. One is a doctor. One is a corporate lawyer. One is a kid that's just never been able to find a good job and is struggling. And the other one's somewhere in the middle of all that. Does that affect, should parents allocate accordingly to financial position of the kids?
Yeah. And again, it's what you said before. Something like that could create a lot of resentment, a lot of division, a lot of infighting amongst those siblings once the parent has obviously deceased. So that
it is one of the most sensitive things when it comes to siblings and how they get along. Money. And when money everyone thinks they get along well. And then when something like someone passing, I have a friend of mine who's 4 siblings in that family, and the mother is very well along in life and has a sizable inheritance that's probably coming. And there's some what do you call this when you do this with the fingers? Like there's some members of that family just waiting to bite down on what's coming.
Some jockeying for position. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And even saying things like, well, do we have to wait that long? Like,
so
terrible.
I guess just to kind of wrap up this inheritance story, I want to tell a funny story, and this is a true story. So this would be, I guess it would be my great uncle or great great uncle, who lived. This was in England. This is probably got to be 1940s, 1950s. Yeah, I think great uncle. Anyway, the point being is that it was an uncle who lived in England who, I guess he didn't. I guess his motive was that he kind of curried favor with the elderly folks around town. He lived in a small town in England, and he would suck up to these old people and do favors for them and do their taxes for them and run errands and all that kind of stuff, with the idea that he would be included within the will, that he would one day be rewarded. And I think at some point he probably was rewarded. But one of the funny stories was that, this one day, this old guy that he was doing favors for is like, I really appreciate all the work you've done, and your reward is coming now. So, here, come to my shed at the end of the garden, and I'll give you your prize. Anyway, it's something to the effect
12 gauge shotgun to the head, or
so he went into this shed thinking that it was going to be bags of money or some expensive thing that he was going to inherit or is to be gifted upon by this old guy, and it was bottles of pee. Like, I shit you not, this guy had saved bottles of his urine in this shed at the end of the garden, and he bequeathed these bottles of pee to my great uncle. And this is a true story. I kid you not, this is true. So
you said shit me not, right?
Yeah.
Useful choice of expression there.
Yes, no.
All right.
Pun was
clearly
intended. So the point being is that
there was some mental challenges there. Come on.
Yeah, there was, but still, the point being is that if you treat your parents well, and you treat them nicely and include them in your lives, maybe you too can inherit a shed full of pee.
Oh my God. Are we going to keep this in the episode?
Yes, we should.
I got to edit that out.
No.
Come on. Well, that's a great place to wrap up, Paul.
Yeah.
What we're watching and listening to, I think I mentioned before, I really got into the Drive to Survive series on Netflix, which is about F1 racing. Never was an F1 fan, didn't understand how anyone could get excited about cars going around a track not in a circle, but in a circuit that, 57 laps or whatever it is. And I watched that documentary and I thought it was fantastic. And last week, for the first time, I actually watched a live F1 race, not in person, but on TV. And I really enjoyed it.
Really?
I thought it was awesome. Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I lied. It's not the first time I've watched a live one. It's the second time. I watched the last race of last season, the 2021 season, and really enjoyed it too. But I just wanted to point out that this was the first time I actually turned a race on from start to finish voluntarily to watch, and absolutely loved it.
Wow.
I'm a huge F1 fan now.
That's pretty cool. Are you maybe going to check out the Montreal Grand Prix?
I was thinking about it. I was looking at tickets a couple weeks ago, but they're like $700.
Oh, really?
For just
I didn't realize
general
that.
admission tickets. So it's a very expensive sport to watch, to participate in.
Yeah.
But I'd love to. I mean, I think for those out there, those listeners who just were like me, who could not imagine watching an F1 race and enjoying it, I really recommend the F1 Drive to Survive series on Netflix. It is so good, and you get to see all the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, the money involved, the personalities of the drivers, the personality of the owners, the equipment, the fact that Mercedes has 1,500 people on their team that support their race cars.
Yeah, I guess.
And the drivers. 1,500 people are employed by Mercedes to work on the race element of what they do. And they're the biggest of all the teams. Mm-hmm. I think Red Bull probably has like 300 people.
Yeah.
But Can you believe that? Like even 300 people behind the scenes, amazing.
Well, I guess when we think of internationals, when we think of organized sports, we're used to Major League Baseball, which is, U.S. and Canada, NHL, Canada, U.S. I think Formula One is truly a worldwide sport in the sense that I don't think we understand that, every single country follows it. And it's truly an international event where, the races are held literally all over the world. So yeah, when you truly have, a worldwide audience, that goes without saying that there's going to be a huge, huge amount of money that goes into it, and a huge amount of money to be made. Yeah, and I'm sure the sponsorship dollars are incredible. So
The
yeah,
politics are pretty big too.
well, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
I guess I got two things though I want to say. Number one, I don't understand how people could really care about this if they haven't seen the series. I still maintain that position that if it were not for seeing the Drive to Survive series on Netflix, I don't know how you could get into it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Not to this. And there's people out there who are big fans and they didn't need Drive to Survive to get there, but I'd love to hear from those people. What is it really? How did you get into it? What got you attracted to it? And for those that did watch it, who were those people, did it enhance your experience with watching it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
do you watch it? Like, do you,
I've watched.
Are you interested in it at all?
I've watched the occasional race on TV, but I don't make a point of watching it. But you're right. If watching this documentary kind of opens your eyes and makes you appreciate the skill level and the grandeur of Formula One, then yeah, I would certainly be open to sort of educating myself on that. Again, and you're right. Watching a race, you sort of watch it with new eyes. You realize.
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
it really is a pretty phenomenal event. And it's, as I said, it's a truly international, worldwide following that captivates truly millions and millions of people everywhere.
It's really brilliant in a way that they did this series, because I think if you think about sports and what's in it for me, why do I care? Well, you watch a baseball team or a hockey team or even a soccer team because it's your hometown or your home country, and there's something in it for you that you care, you're connected to it. And I know there's people that watch sports teams that aren't necessarily from those places, especially Premier League and things like that. But what the F1 Drive to Survive did is it made me care. Because whether Lewis Hamilton won a race or Valerie Bottas won a race or Ocon or what's the other guy, the one that Lewis Hamilton keeps battling with, Verstappen, didn't really matter to me. It's like, I don't care about these guys. Like, okay, great to see Lewis Hamilton. I don't know how many black racers there are out there. Certainly he's the most successful racer of all time, and he happens to be black. That's awesome. But what that series did is it made me care. And that's, I think, when you watch a race now and you know what's going on in the background, I care. That's why I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a couple of Canadian drivers on the circuit, as far as I recall.
There are, yeah. Not that great, though. Maybe they're great, but they just haven't won anything yet.
Yeah.
I think Lance Stroll, has podiumed once, maybe. But, there's Jacques Villeneuve. I think he was F1, and he's one of the most successful Canadian racers for sure. But generally, the Canadians don't show up too much in the race scene.
Okay, so your interest in Formula One, now, would that transcend into other racing forums? Like, so, for example, NASCAR? Would you watch a NASCAR race and, like, be into it?
Good point. No, I have no interest in NASCAR. Like, that's even, the oval or whatever. Like, God.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to be convinced otherwise, as I was with F1. So maybe again, I have no attachment to any of the drivers. I've never physically been to a race. Mm-hmm. So that's something else. Like, I was able to get so into this, and I didn't even I've never actually been to a race, but the series gave me a bit of a taste, maybe what it might be like. But I feel if I actually went to an F1 race, it would take it into the next level. So maybe NASCAR or other races, I wouldn't be interested in it if I went and saw it, or if I watched a documentary on NASCAR that was similar to the F1. Maybe.
What you should do is that they have local races. So the old, well, I guess what a lot of people refer to as Mosport, or the Canadian Tire racetrack, or whatever it is. It's just north outside of Peterborough, I believe. They have like amateur races, or I guess amateur, but I guess also sort of like a semi-professional league as well.
Recreational.
Like a recreational
semi-pro.
Yeah, semi-pro league. And they do have races throughout the summer.
Have you been?
I haven't, but I've often thought that maybe I should check it out because it's not that far.
Yeah.
Let's
do it. Let's bring the microphones down to the racetrack.
Yeah, it might be a cool experience. So yeah, if you're, maybe that might be a first step in figuring out if this is something that you're legitimately interested in. Go check out one of the local races, and hey, if you love what you see, then jump in full board with following F1. So the show that I've been watching, it's actually a documentary.
And I have to go pee so badly right now, so you have to be quick.
Okay, all right. Well, are you going to save it up in bottles for me?
Go ahead. What are you watching,
okay.
Paul?
Okay, well, I'm going to really take my time in describing this.
Yeah, while I squirm here. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So what I'm watching,
I got the power to shut this off.
Okay,
so,
you're just delaying it here. Come on, let me get to the point. So what I've been watching is a documentary series about the food that made America. And it's an interesting documentary to show how certain brands, or I guess inventors of food, have sort of came to prominence. So there's an episode about submarine sandwiches. So, the rise of Subway sandwiches and Blimpie, which is more of a U.S. Subway shop.
Yep.
So yeah, it was interesting to see how, the rise of certain types of food that, for example, submarine sandwiches prior to like 1960 was very much like a regionalized, considered like an Italian food. It wasn't by no means mainstream. So, it was restaurateurs like the guy behind the Subway empire. He kind of helped to bring the Subway sandwich to become mainstream food. Another episode that I watched was about ice cream. So the rise of Dairy Queen and Carvel ice cream. Again, how, it became a mainstream food. And a lot of that was because of technology, like the advent of soft serve ice cream. It wasn't until they became, refrigeration techniques, advancements in food storage and machines that could create soft serve ice cream and make it portable, mass produced. It wasn't until that technology came around that, these restaurants were able to sort of gain their foothold and become quite prosperous. So yeah, it was interesting to see kind of like the rise of Dairy Queen and the mistakes that they had made and how they kind of became, the number one ice cream shop in all of the world for that matter. So yeah, there's quite a few different episodes out there. And it talks
the food that built America.
Yeah, the food that built America. Yeah, I think there's one
and
about.
Where do you watch it? Where do you see it?
I believe it's on Netflix. It's actually no.
Looks like it's a History Channel.
It's on the History Channel. So we've actually PVR'd it when we've seen it on the History Channel.
So we might not be able to get this unless you have cable.
Yeah, correct. Unless maybe you might be able to download it if you have maybe the history.com website, you might be able to download it. So yeah, I'd have to check to see if it's on like Netflix or, Prime or one of those streaming channels. So yeah, right. I see that you've opened up the Wikipedia page to see that, but yeah, it was interesting, talking about like the pizza wars,
Dunkin' Donuts, Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, Hershey's chocolates. So it's really interesting to see where a lot of mainstream foods that we just kind of take for granted, where they originate from. And it is quite fascinating to see the progression of food. If you were to go back in time, like 50 years ago, or 80 years ago, like how different our food selection would be. I think we may have sort of touched on this in some previous episodes, in terms of, differences in various generations. I think if you were to go back in time, let's say 75 years, I bet you that the selection of food would be very, very, very limited. Like, I think we take for granted as to how much selection of food that we have available to us these days. Whether it's
especially in a first world country, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I wonder, it could be another topic, but is there too much selection? Like,
it could
maybe this
be,
is part of the problems in our diet, is that we've got all these produced and processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the show, the one about McDonald's, do you remember what that one's called, with the franchise or something?
Oh, the movie was The Founder. It starred Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, it's an
great
excellent
movie.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times. Excellent movie. I highly recommend that. But the rise of McDonald's, that in itself is a very fascinating story. So yeah, that was a very well done movie, and really explained, the rise of McDonald's and the various challenges. The one
thing I'm glad is that these places have restrooms so that people like me can use them when they need to.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah,
and I don't store it in my shed.
Well, you should. That way, someday, someone might inherit that.
All right, I gotta go. This was good. We'll be back soon, and we'll have to think about our Windsor episode, whether we aired or not.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, if you want to hear Paul and I under the influence of a few beverages, let us know, and maybe that will influence whether we actually publish this episode.
Yeah, chime in. Let us know.
That episode. All right, you have a good week.
Yeah, you too. We'll see you.